Hey guys, I'm back. Today I want to mix it up a little bit and I'm going to do a camera review. Actually, reviews on two different cameras. I'm going to run some tests and show you different things that I liked about each cameras. I'm also going to show you things I don't like about both cameras. So the first camera I'm going to show you is the Sony RX100 VII. And I really like this one. I like the size of it. It's pretty light and everything. And then the other camera is the Canon G7X Mark III. And they're pretty comparable. I will say that just holding the cameras without any sort of case or anything, the Canon is slightly more comfortable. It's also, I think, a little bit lighter. Size-wise, the Canon is just a little bit bigger, side to side, just barely. So that's one big difference between the two. The other thing is that the Sony has a viewfinder. So you've got the finder button here. That pops up. And one really cool thing about it is that when you put your eye up to the viewfinder, it actually switches between it and the display on the back, but you can use either one. That is one thing that the Sony has that I really like. So the tests that we're gonna do are, I'm gonna show you some things like makeup and the focus and the zoom on things like that. I will be pointing out kind of the display differences. We're going to talk about battery life and just convenience of both because they're pretty different on a couple of different features. We're also going to do outdoor testing as well because I really wanted a point and shoot that I could rig up to my chair somehow. And I will say that neither has a really great solution yet. I found a solution that will work for both. And a lot of the equipment that I use today works with both cameras. So I'm going to show all of that. They're pretty comparable. The biggest difference is that the Sony is about $500 more. So it really just depends on what you're looking for in a camera. And yeah, so we're just going to get into it now and I will see you guys in just a minute. Hey guys, so as I kind of already mentioned, we've got the two different cameras. I've got the Sony right here, and I've got the Canon right here. We did do some test runs yesterday to try to work out some of the kinks. Funny enough, this right here is a tire cleaner brush, and we've literally just got it taped to a monopod with the adapter to hold both cameras so that we get the same type of footage. And I think this is going to work better. We just ran into a lot of issues yesterday. So now that we've kind of figured out what's what, I'm really hoping that this will maybe solve the problem so that we can really compare these two. It was just bouncing around a lot yesterday and it made it a little bit interesting trying to deal with that. So we're going to go outside and really just kind of test stability, focus, sound quality, field of vision, and just kind of color in general. So yeah, let's go see what happens. So we've been having a lot of issues, so I'm going to try to get this done as quickly as possible. We're going to do some pushing around on the aggregate driveway and also on the pavement and test the sound with the onboard audio, not adding any microphones, and then I'm going to add in later the lav mic for both and test that out on both, and maybe one other microphone depending on if the Canon lasts or not. We've been having a lot of issues with recording on it. So this is the onboard audio outside for the Sony. This is the onboard audio outside for the Canon. So I'm going to push around on aggregate without the mic and also just regular concrete without the mic as well. So this is the aggregate and I'm just going to push around a little bit. Right off the bat, the Sony has a much better shake resistance than the Canon. The Canon screen is like flipping around, or flipping down away and everything. So that's kind of annoying. And it's super windy, so I'm curious how the audio is going to be on this. But now I'm going to go from the aggregate to just the regular road pavement. So it should be a little bit quieter. but it might not be with it being windy, so we'll just see. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so now I'm gonna try the lav microphone. This is the outdoor audio using the Rode lav mic on the Sony right now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do basically try to do the same thing without getting everybody that's out here in the background, but I'm going to push around using the lav mic on the aggregate and the pavement just to show you the difference on that. All right, this is the aggregate using the lav mic on the Sony. And I guess we'll go, let me go this direction. All right, so now I'm still on the lav mic on the Sony, but now I'm on the pavement instead of the aggregate. So now I've switched back to the Canon. This time I'm using the Rode wireless lav mic right here. And I'm going to go push on the same aggregate and the pavement as well. This is the aggregate again. It's pretty shaky. It's definitely trying to cut out, which is kind of annoying. So now I just switched from the aggregate to the pavement for the Canon. Turn back around and go back from the road to the aggregate again, and it is super shaky on the Canon. So all right, it's just
it's like the screen doesn't hold itself up as well.
The screen doesn't hold itself up well, and it just keeps flipping the display upside down. I don't understand. So that's so if it knocks it loose all the time.
Yeah, if it just shakes loose on the rough terrain,
that's not going to work for me. So, okay. So the one thing I noticed that was super shaky on the Canon, which is this one, the Sony, which is this one, is better as far as handling, moving around and changing terrain and things like that. I also noticed that the screen is warmer looking on the Sony versus the Canon. Biggest issue really has been the fact that we had to wait forever to finish up this part of the video because the Canon overheated. Super major deal breaker for me that I couldn't even record, a 5-minute video without it needing to cool off for half an hour. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, you can see, yes, the Canon does seem to have brighter coloring, whereas the Sony over here is darker coloring, and the field of view is a little bit better on the Canon, but just the pure frustration we had with trying to use the Canon makes it not worth it to me personally. So that's it for the outside part of it. I think now we're gonna go record inside to show the differences as well. This is gonna be Jackson's onboard audio for the Sony. Jackson, speak. Oh, this is Jackson's onboard audio for the Canon. Jackson, speak. Oh boy. Okay, let's go. Good job. Good job. Okay, so now I'm back inside, and for the remainder of this video, I'm actually going to use this little microphone. I really like this one. It's really easy to use. But for now, this is the onboard audio for the Canon inside. This is the onboard audio for the Sony inside. Okay, so before the Canon that I'm using right now dies again or overheats, I'm going to show you a couple of other things that I noticed as we were kind of experimenting. First is this focus. First of all, the focus is good on the Canon. I don't like that I have to tap the screen. But it does work, and as far as timing on it, it is you can see right now it won't even focus on me very well. it's a little bit more delayed. So here's the Sony. I mean, almost instantly it's able, I said that, let me pull it back again. There we go. So there is the Sony, and it almost immediately picks up. And when it switches back to me, the Sony does just a little bit better of a job on that as well. As you can tell, the Canon looks warmer, whereas the Sony looks cooler. Right now I have my light ring on. So I'm gonna show you guys the difference with my light ring completely off in my normal setting when I'm not doing a makeup video, so you can see the difference. So this is what everything would look like if I didn't have my light ring on. The big thing I'm noticing right now is that if you look at me with the Canon, you see it causes a lot more attention to just the inconsistencies in my skin, the dark circles under my eyes. I just have really, really harsh shadows. The Sony right here isn't quite as harsh. It's a little bit more of a softer feel to it. And I just like it overall. Everything about it pretty much I like on the Sony overall. The sound quality is slightly better with the Canon in certain situations, so we'll give credit to that. Okay, actually, so let me show you something else that I liked about the Canon, or sorry, the Sony versus the Canon. So this is my normal makeup palette. Let me get that lighting back again. Okay, so again, as you can tell, this is really blue right now. Okay, so this is it turned all the way up. Canon looks better right now, but when I go down to about where I normally use it, I actually like the way the Sony looks to me right now. Again, you don't have all the harsh shadows and stuff. The other thing is, you can actually see this right now. This is super overexposed with the light ring on. So it's kind of, there we go. That's pretty accurate of what it looks like, but it took a minute. Whereas when I go straight over to the Sony, it's very accurate to the color. Same thing with the colors inside though as well. So here is the normal makeup palette that I use. This, again, this is the Canon. And then here's my normal makeup palette when I use the Sony. The Sony is very, very accurate on the color. But if you look at these side by side, this doesn't even necessarily look like it's the same palette as far as the shading and the reflection of the colors. It's not accurate here. And the Canon is overheating again and about to shut down. So I think that's a good place to stop on this section right now. So as you can probably tell from pretty much all the footage, the Canon was super frustrating. You know, one of the main things that I noticed, other than just, you know, stability and battery and all of that, I've mentioned it a few times, that just the color in general is very, very different on the Canon versus the Sony. And I want to show you, since the Canon is not working again, kind of what you can do if you have a light ring that has different filters. So right now I have the light ring with it being all white light. So I have these pieces, and I actually have 4 of them, and they all kind of click together in a circle. And I can click it all the way and do all 4 pieces, or you can take half of these and just use 2 of the 4 amber pieces, and it warms it up, as you can tell. Or you can do all 4. So I'm gonna kind of mimic that. This is still just 2, but it's the top and this and one side versus each side. So you can kind of see how just the positioning of the amber filter can change everything. I mean, really, honestly, the Canon was so frustrating. Like, every single clip that I tried to record, it overheated every single time. It took us 2 days to record because we kept running out of time. We ran out of time the first day because we kept having to stop for 20-30 minutes to let the Canon cool off. I'm sorry, but even at $500 cheaper, it was not worth it at all to me. So frustrating. Not to mention that to charge The Canon, which dies faster, by the way, you have to take the camera off of your stand and pull the battery and put it on the charger. You can get a USB device, but I had a really hard time even finding that online to where you can charge it with USB. So that's another win for the Sony, because I literally am recording and I can have it plugged in and charging while I record, whereas that's not really an option for the Canon as it already comes anyway. I don't know. I am just kind of baffled by how many people said to go with the Canon, because it was not good to me on most every level. So to do I'm going to give you the breakdown on everything, kind of to recap, because I've been kind of keeping notes as we've gone throughout the weekend, because we've had to stop so much. I've been making notes. All right, so for the Canon G7X Mark III and the Sony RX100 Mark VII, they're both really easy to use. The accessories that I used all worked on both. Neither have a really good wheelchair setup though, as far as like if I wanted to attach either camera to my chair and be hands-free so that I can push and be active or whatever. I had the setup that worked, but it wasn't great and it really wouldn't work in certain situations, I don't think. So I kind of want to mention that, because I feel like if there are camera companies out there that want to make improvements, improve the accessories, because we're in this really fast-paced, you know, ever-changing world, and we want to use technology to capture it. And when somebody like me that loves to capture through video, and I'm in a wheelchair, it just limits me even more. So I would really encourage companies out there to really think about that. Think about how they can expand even more to really include everyone, and just make it more functional across the board. That's for both companies. It's kind of just the general issue that I came across with both. The other things they have in common is that they're both 4K. They both have SD cards for memory. Neither really had a very good charging indicator light. Everything was kind of on screen. I really wish that if it was dying, it would either of them would let me know, because especially when you're just getting familiar, you don't necessarily notice it right away. So it took a couple of times of losing footage because the Canon died on me and I didn't realize it because it had gone into standby or whatever, and I just didn't realize it. So I lost footage on that. So the pros for the Canon are that it's cheaper. Again, it's about $500 cheaper. It did have a slightly better onboard audio, and it didn't distort the sound quite as much as the Sony. So that's something that we'll show. You'll be able to see that through everything we've done. The cons were that if you notice when we were outside in particular, that there was less focus on the background, so everything kind of blurred out, and in some cases that's nice, but if you're looking for overall definition for the things around you, it just didn't have a really good definition compared to the Sony. You'll also notice when I was pushing and trying the different terrain that I was having screen issues. It's very obvious that the Canon could not handle it as well. Neither did great, if I'm being honest. I would have liked them to have both been a little bit better, but I think that the Sony did better on that as well, even though the onboard audio with the Canon did better. So I also noticed that when I was hitting bumps, when I was doing the different terrain outside, that the Canon screen would flip, it would move, because I had both screens up this entire time as I've been recording over the weekend, and the Canon it moved around, and it was just not very good on that either, whereas the Sony did a better job on that overall. Let's see, battery life by far has been better on the Sony. For the focus, to get the Canon to focus, you had to tap the screen, whereas the Sony, you don't have to do that, at least not as much. Also on the focus is just faster and better on the Sony. It was more responsive and everything. Another thing that the Sony is a little bit better about is that it doesn't split the video if the video gets too long, whereas the Canon split the video into multiple videos after you hit a certain point, if it could even record for that length of time at all. So just the amount of frustration that I dealt with the Canon overheating with within literally minutes of using it was so frustrating. I that alone was a deal breaker. Between that and just its lack of ability to focus when moving doesn't work for me. I'm just being honest. It wasn't very good. Onboard audio though is better on the Canon. That is really the main thing that I felt like Canon does do a tiny bit better than the Sony. But with most of the microphones make up for that, so it's not that big of a deal. You know, and you can get, like I said, I used 2 different microphones plus the onboard throughout this process, and they both worked fine. There are tons and tons of other options. I have 2 other choices I could have shown you, but for time's sake, I just figured we'd just go to the 2 that I knew I would use the most for this. And then the other thing that I just thought of is just the size difference. They're comparable, but one was smaller than the other. So I guess that's it. If you guys have any questions, let me know. This was definitely Sony for the win by a long shot. Like, I'm really surprised at how many of my friends were team Canon when I first was trying to decide between the 2, because using both of these was a completely different experience. They were very similar in how they functioned overall, like where the buttons were and a lot of the features that it offered, but Sony just did better. I also like that we can access on the Sony video from our phone. So if I'm recording and using the screen like I am right now, and say Wes is wanting to make sure, you know, that everything looks good, I can show you. So right now he actually has to where he's watching me on his phone. So he can see, and you know, he could signal to me or whatever. And you just noticed again, the focus is really good about coming in and out really quickly on the Sony when you're shifting gears from one thing to the next. So, and it just did a better job than Canon did. So Sony for the win. Good job, Sony. I like it. I'm really happy with this camera. The USB charging was a major deal breaker, and I'm super excited that the Sony has it, because that is going to make life so much easier to have that and not have to worry about it overheating and dying really quickly either. So that is it. I hope that this helps. If you guys have any questions, shoot me a comment down below, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.